like across the seas rather than in person. I'm impressed that we even got this working. Oh, Jill. Hey, Jill. She's on our Instagram live, Darin. I get to say hi to all these people. I'm super excited to have Dr. Darin on today talking to us about his experience with the AMD Ion Foot Cleanse. And I have to say, and Darin might not know this, when Glenn said to me, hey, Dr. Darin was really skeptical too. And he got us into the clinic, and I was like, and then I quickly messaged Darin, and I was like, so are you using the AMD Ion foot spas in your clinic? And when you said yes, I was like, okay, he's Mr. Skeptic too. There's got to be something to this. So Darin, will you tell us about our experience, like who you are as a doctor and what convinced you to start wanting to use the foot cleanse? What got you involved in this?
Yeah, so it's really funny. I've known about AMD, the Ion Cleanse foot bath for years. I speak at a lot of conferences for children with autism because it's a big part of my practice. And they're always a sponsor, they're always a vendor. They show up at every event. And literally for probably, I don't know, maybe almost 10 years, 8 years, I would walk by, I would look at them, I would roll my eyes. I'm like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I just couldn't mentally get over the hurdle. So fast forward many years later, we had a pediatrician in our office who's very well known in the autism community. He actually treated Jenny McCarthy's son for many years, and even more skeptical than me. And I think the Ion Cleanse people approached him and said, hey, would you be interested in doing a study? And Dr. Jerry Kartznell's the doctor that did the study. And he said, look, I'm really skeptical. I don't think this works. But if you're willing to put your money where your mouth is, I will do a study. He goes, but if we find that it's BS and it doesn't work, I'm going to tell everybody. And the company said, fine, fair enough. So Dr. Kartznell, I think, picked 10 of his most difficult kids that he kind of was stuck with and wasn't improving, and did I believe it was a 60-day, 2-month study. And 9 out of the 10 kids that he did the foot bath with improved.
Wow.
And these were kids who had not improved with really any other therapy out there. So he quickly became a believer. He's like, look, I can't argue with what I see. And they had done what's called an ATAC. It's an autism treatment evaluation checklist. So basically it's a symptom questionnaire where parents filled it out before and after, and there was a significant reduction in their ATAC score. So with autism, a lower score is better. Higher score means less functioning. So, these kids had big improvement in their behavior and their language. And so after he did that, I met with Glenn and one of the other representatives of AMD, and we sat down. We actually talked through, what is it really doing? What's the science behind it? And look, the reality is that, there really is no money for large scale studies. So the company has sponsored a handful of small studies, most of which have showed some clinical benefit, but they actually agreed since my population is autism and Lyme disease, and since the autism thing has actually been studied a couple of times, I said, hey, would you guys be interested in sponsoring a Lyme study? And they agreed. So we've, unfortunately, it's taken about a year to get through the IRB process, and we are almost done with that. So we're going to be starting our own study looking at, how this affects people with Lyme disease. And, I've been using it with some of my Lyme patients, obviously not part of the study. And, the feedback of it has been mostly positive. So, kind of what I've seen through other practitioners. And again, having talked to a lot of parents who've used it with their kids, that've seen benefits, and now seeing it with my own population, I'm not sure I 100% understand exactly what's going on. I think there's more in play than, even what the company talks about. And I'll just share with you very briefly, when Glenn came to my office, my fiance, who's also a doctor. So I'm a naturopathic doctor by training, as is my fiance. We practice together in Irvine, California. And she kind of wanted to see, because, when you do the foot bath, there's this color change in the water. Now, we know if you put the plate in the bath with no feet at all, it's going to change color. That's just chemistry. It's a function of, the mineral content of your tap water versus the physiology of your own feet and so forth. So we did a little study in-house where we ran the foot bath with no feet in it. We collected the water before and after just to see if anything changed. And we sent it to doctors' data to test it for heavy metals. And in that foot bath, before and after with no feet, there was really no difference in the heavy metals before and after. So clearly the plate by itself isn't changing that. Totally. We also did the same thing with myself and her. We collected our water each individually. And then after our foot bath, we collected another sample of water, sent it off. And what was really interesting in both of our samples in the post-treatment water, now this is the water actually in the bath, there were significantly higher levels of lead and mercury in the water itself. Wow. So now that's an N of 2. Take it for what it's worth. So I talk with Glenn and the other people all the time, with this color change in the water, it really doesn't mean what we think it means. At some point, we may find out there is some significance. I don't really put any stock, but I was really intrigued to see that we were excreting heavy metals through, our feet in the water. So, I think that's a pretty good indication, again, which is a small sample size, that there is something going on chemically that is causing your body to push, some of these potential toxins out through the foot bath. And, people say, well, why the feet? Well, I think the feet are just easy. It's easy to chair and put your feet in a bath. I imagine you could stick your elbows and your hands and your face in the water and it would probably do the same thing. It's just a conduit to your skin. But, the whole concept of it is that, that plate is generating either positive or negative ions. And then it's just the law of attraction. We know that when there's more negative ions, it's going to pull positively charged things out and vice versa. So, chemistry wise, it makes a lot of sense. And again, once I sat down with the company, actually kind of talked through it, I'm like, okay, this makes a little bit of sense. But after we did our own little study there and found that, we were mobilizing, lead and mercury, that was sort of like, okay, there's something there and we need to explore this a little bit further.
Do you still use it personally, Darin?
Personally, I do use it, not as often as I should. What we're going to do in the study is we're going to do 2 days on, 1 day off. So I think there is benefit of doing it frequently. I think it's kind of like physical therapy. It's one of those things that builds on itself. And once you get to a point where you start mobilizing things out of tissue, we know we do this with chelation therapy. You want to be on a chelation schedule. So as you start mobilizing it out of tissue, you can grab it and pull it out. The concept here really is kind of the same. Again, I'm not sure if we're crystal clear on what the optimal schedule is. Each of the little studies that have been done so far have been done a little bit differently. Some have done 3 days on, 1 day off. Some have done 2 days on, 1 day off. So, I think there's room to try and figure out what's optimal. And with the device itself, there are different settings depending on whether you want more positive or negative ions. Again, I'm not sure we're crystal clear on that. The study that we're going to do is going to be 50-50 positive and negative ions. So we'll see how that goes.
And what are some of the results you've seen with your population in clinic, Darin? What are some of the, I know that we've got a couple of autistic children that come into clinic here. It's not something that I specialize in at all, but I did just say I was working with the actual parent, working with their parents, and they were like, by the way, could we use this with our children? And we've seen significant changes in behavior, in terms of mood, irritability, anger, just being able to calm down, just even sit still for some of these children that are very active and just build up. They've been diagnosed with ADHD or whatever. So we've seen that, and I've only seen it on a very small scale. I've only seen that, I've seen more changes with adults. But what sort of changes are you seeing?
Personally or in my practice?
In your practice with your clients.
Yeah. So again, for kids on the spectrum, just as you described, we see better behavior, we see better cognition, better awareness, in some cases, better language. Kids are sleeping a little bit better. They're pooping better. So, kind of across the board, we've seen improvement. And my adults that have various things. So again, I see a lot of Lyme disease. I see a lot of multiple sclerosis and other autoimmune conditions. And it's been more energy. For some of my patients with, neuropathy, the neuropathy has gone down. For people who've, had brain fog, their brain's a little bit clearer. People tell me that they sleep a little bit better. People have more energy, their mood's better. So it's been really kind of interesting because, I've been kind of looked to see if there's a pattern that emerges with certain patient populations. Are we going to see more improvement really in neurological function or more improvements in energy? And it seems to be kind of global and that we're getting improvements in different areas of people's health. So again, I hope at some point we can explore that a little bit deeper, and again, find out which subset of people are going to maybe have, improvement with certain modes, with certain, protocols. But, this is our start. So again, I'm excited to get our Lyme study rolling along, because we're going to do a questionnaire that's going to go through all the different symptoms. We'll do it at the beginning, the middle, and the end of the study, which will be a 3-month study. And then we might see that maybe there's certain symptoms that really benefit more than others. So I'm hoping we'll be able to get that information when the study's done.
How long are you going to get people to do it? Like, how many times a week? What frequency are you going to have them coming and doing it?
So the way that we're going to do this is that people are going to do this at home. The company is part of sponsors. They're going to ship these devices to people at home.
Wow, that's
and so people, it's not practical to come in the office, because they have to do 2 days on, 1 day off. So to be here, more than half of the week, because our people come from all over the place. So they're going to send the devices to people. They'll do it at home. They'll keep a log of when they do it. But yeah, it'll be 2 days on, 1 day off for 3 months. And again, they'll fill out a questionnaire at the beginning, the middle, the end of the study. And, we'll just see, how people feel. My expectation is that, again, globally, there will be improvement. But I'll be curious to see, again, if there's certain, symptoms, certain things that seem to improve more than others. But that'll be the benefit. And I'm hoping, if that goes well, at some point, if we can get more money, and maybe our friends at Doctors Data will help sponsor it, where we can actually start testing the water and see, is there really stuff coming out of the water?
I would love that.
We've got plenty of labs that measure heavy metals, that measure chemicals. So the labs exist. We just got to get them on board. But I think that'd be really fascinating to see what is actually coming out in the water. Is there any correlation with that color change? And, the color change, again, may just be a function of individual chemistry. But if we can demonstrate that it actually is mobilizing various toxins out of the body, I think that would be significant.
Do you see, when you see it, do you notice a difference between the color chart, like what is coming up from their colors, and what the colors, like the green being the lymphatic system or the liver? Do you notice in terms of just in terms of the symptoms of your patients or clients, do you see a correlation, just anecdotally?
I can't say I have. It's funny, when I do it personally, my water turns dark green. It gets really foamy, and I get these black flecks in it. When the other doctor in the office did it, hers is almost bright yellow. She gets no black flecks. So again, I'm sure it's individual chemistry at some point. And when we looked at our lead and mercury, her lead and mercury was actually higher than mine. So I thought, when I first saw those black flecks, I'm like, well, maybe that is some metal that's, because of the ionic charge, it's like sticking together. When I actually grabbed it in the water, it completely disintegrated in my hand. I have no idea what it is. At some point, maybe we'll figure it out. But I can't say that I've seen really a pattern with, the color change with the patients and what their conditions are. So I haven't quite seen that yet.
The thing is that the color's changing. Like, it's not the same with the feet. And this is what I say, because it's so funny. As I walk past the office that we've set up in clinic here that people are using, all as I ever see is all these heads kind of looking down the whole time like that. So, which is really cool. Like, it is fun. It makes me laugh, because everyone's so intrigued with what the color is changing to and what it means and everything else. And I think, like, high level picture is the fact that the color's changing and it changes differently for each person. That's right. The point here, that stuff is shifting in your body. Getting bogged in the details of what all that color means. And like you say, they can test the water. We can send it to the lab to test it for the clients that really do want to know and want to pay for it. You can get specific, but otherwise it's just the shift in the color is the key part.
Yeah, the color chart that they provide was really based on a Chinese medicine perspective. So in Chinese medicine, there's association with each, meridian, each organ system. So it doesn't directly translate to what we understand in Western medicine. So it's funny. I kind of tease them all the time. I'm like, you really need to stop providing that color chart, because I think it creates more confusion in people than it helps. But, the founder of the company, that's something that he did, again, based on an understanding of Chinese medicine. But if you try to translate it, what we understand in Western medicine, it's not an equal, trade of information. So again, we may find at some point that there is something that comes out in the color that we find is related to specific things. But the fact that I think we're all individually different, our chemistry is a little different, it makes sense that we're going to get differences in color just based on our own individual chemistry. And whether there's more than that beyond that, I guess we'll have to figure that out.
Also, Darin, I don't know who runs it in your clinic, but do they ever talk about, do different people need different amounts of salt? Because obviously salt is what we're adding to the water. Does whoever runs it in your clinic ever notice that depending on the clients, is there any relevance to that as well?
The addition of salt seems to be more related to the water. I was just with Glenn and AMD in Utah a couple of weeks ago, and I noticed that he had to add a lot of salt to everybody's water, just that the water there in Utah seemed to be very mineral deficient. So it seems to be more related to whatever you're using as your water source. I have some patients that are really concerned that are using distilled water to fill their foot bath, which of course has no minerals. So they have to add a ton of salt to get the voltage right. Our water here in Irvine, California, usually you just have to add a small pinch and it balances out. So it seems to be more related to your tap water than individual chemistry.
Got it. That makes perfect sense. And then Darin, you don't have to share this because you might not want to. Have you noticed positive health changes with you personally using it?
So the funny thing, the very first time I used it, again, Glenn was here with another rep, and I have multiple sclerosis, so I have some difficulty walking and standing when I've been sitting a long time, and I get neuropathy in my legs, and it could have been the best placebo ever. But after I did a 45-minute treatment, I stood up and I started walking down the hall, and I'm like, well, son of a gun, I could swear that I was walking straighter, sturdier. I'm like, come on. I mean, I was on this thing for 45 minutes. That can't be. And so I talked to Glenn. I said, look, did anyone ever tell you this? He goes, well, actually, because we've had MS patients that tell us that they feel improvement after doing it. So it's funny because I played with I have one of the devices where you can change the modes.
Yeah.
And played with the different modes to see if one does better. And for whatever, mode 5, which again is that 50-50 split, is the one that I seem to do best on. So that's what we're going to do in our Lyme study based on just my own experience. And again, I'm a former Lyme patient too. So it was kind of interesting. Now, as I've done subsequent treatments, I haven't gotten quite the same, immediate bang. They will tell you that it's not really what's happening at the time of the bath. It's really what happens after that. So again, yes, there may be something that gets pulled out of your feet during the course of your 30, 40 minutes, however long you're doing your foot bath. But there's that whole thing that happens after the fact. So it's really about what gets mobilized out of tissue afterwards. So every time you create a gradient, our body naturally will move things from high concentration to low concentration. So the goal is, as we start pulling that stuff out, it's going to create a gradient that will start pulling it out of tissue. And that's why I think the frequency of this is really important, that if you're going to do it, you can't do one foot bath every now and then and expect really to see any major results. I mean, you really got to be consistent with it. But if you can do that, again, most of the people that we've used it with have had, positive benefits.
And do you find that they need to do more initially and then they can drop, like kind of do maintenance with it? Or what do you find with your client population?
Yeah, it's exactly. I think, we tend to go like on a 2 or 3 month, really, like I said, that 3 days on, 1 day off, or 2 days on, 1 day off. And then after they get to that point, then we start backing off, and then it's a couple times a week, and then maybe once a week, so it really depends on their level of improvement. I have had a handful of kids, particularly kids with autism, that when they do the foot bath, they go crazy. So I think it's like any other type of detox protocol, that if you start mobilizing a lot of things too quickly and the body can't handle it, that you'll see, changes in behavior. I have one woman I'm working with now in Texas that she's an adult. She's got Lyme disease, and she can handle about 2 or 3 minutes, and anything longer than that, she feels worse. So, like everything else, you just have to find, the right timing, the right dose of what works for each person. But even at that 2 or 3 minutes, she sees improvement. I can't exactly explain why, but
if you're seeing the improvement, Darin, at 2 or 3 minutes, you don't really care. If you know what I mean, like I find with my clients,
exactly.
If anything you're seeing an improvement, it's like I don't need more. Like I'm happy. Like if that's my peak and I'm getting an improvement.
If less is more, that's great.
Totally, Darin. I'm a big believer in that. It's like more of a good thing isn't necessarily a good thing at the end of that. Do you also notice, like, have you loved adding it in terms of as part of your detox protocols when you're working with clients? Like from a practitioner point of view, from a doctor point of view, like have you found it extremely successful?
Yeah. So, when we talk about detox, I mean, detox is never really one thing. And it's not like something really that you're doing just for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. This often becomes an ongoing thing. We're exposed to, thousands of toxins every year. It's just by virtue of being human and living on Earth. So, especially in the United States, we know that the average American gets exposed to over 80,000 chemicals a year. And I would imagine in any industrialized country, it's probably something very similar. So, when we talk about detox, we're giving nutrients and herbs to help, facilitate, mobilization out of tissue, improving liver function. We get people to sweat because we know that through sweat, you lose a lot of toxins. So this is just one more thing as part of a comprehensive detox protocol that you can use that's going to help, facilitate getting this stuff out of tissue, but knowing that there's always something coming in. It's like, yes, you can minimize that. You can choose not to use toxic chemicals in your home. You can choose not to put toxic makeup on your face. You can choose a lot of that, but there's still the things that are out there in the world that you can't control. And that's what we're really trying to help is, minimize that body burden, minimize that load, and help people, get their tissues and their cells working as best as they can.
100%, Darin, and you've wrapped it up really well. We want to minimize the load, but the reality is we live in a world like me and you get on planes all the time, so we're exposed to pests. Like you can't just sit at home in your little box and hope for the best. That's not real, if you know what I mean. Like, and we can be as perfect as we want with organic food and all the rest, but we are just living in the world where we're being exposed to toxins all the time. So you just want things that can help you and can assist your body and just take the body burden off. Also, Darin, just totally off the topic, just quickly before I let you go because it's late for you. What other detox treatments do you have in your office?
So we do a lot of different things. So we do everything from, nutritional support. So there's a lot of nutrients we know that help upregulate phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification of the liver. I mean, that's a very long list. Yeah. We do IV nutritional therapy. We use things like IV vitamin C, IV phosphatidylcholine, which is a very important nutrient for the liver and the nervous system. We get people to exercise, things like yoga, cycling, running, whatever you can physically do to get you to sweat. Sauna therapy is a huge part of our practice. We recommend a lot of our patients jump in a sauna. Dr. Stephen Genuis has done some interesting research showing that when you get into a sauna, you excrete a lot of toxic metals, you excrete mycotoxins, so your body really dumps a lot of stuff. We have a lot of our patients that do colon hydrotherapy. So a lot of people don't get too excited about getting their colon clean, but it's an old naturopathic therapy. We've been doing it for decades, and it's actually a very safe therapy. But again, when you look at some of the studies on it, you can mobilize a lot of various toxins out of the colon, and there's very few contraindications. So, again, in our practice, it's really, we try and tailor it to the individual. What do we think that their needs are? How much intervention do they need? How aggressive do you need to be? I think, again, I kind of come from the perspective of less is more. So although we utilize all these different therapies, people aren't doing all of them at the same time. We pick one or two we think is going to give the most bang for the buck. But, if I've got someone who's chronically constipated, we have to be careful about oral things that are going to detoxify them, because if they're constipated, they start dumping it into their gut and it's got nowhere to go. They're going to reabsorb a lot of it and feel really sick. So someone like that may be better off for, colon hydrotherapy or IV therapy. If someone's a good eliminator, getting them in a sauna to get them to mobilize it might be great, with the foot bath. So, we're always kind of trying to mix and match, the right therapies that we think are going to give the patient the best results with the least invasive nature.
Also, Darin, just anecdotally, you might not notice this at all. Have you ever noticed a difference with people that sauna and do the foot bath? Do they see more changes in their colors, or do they feel different? Like, is there a thing? Because I've noticed with some of my clients that they are saunaing and doing the foot baths, and those clients are like, oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't done the sauna foot bath combination as much for various reasons, but we've had people do sauna colon hydrotherapy. I think it's kind of same thing, that the sauna starts mobilizing out of tissue. And if you have another method that's going to help kind of pull it out, so whether you're doing the foot bath or you're doing colon hydrotherapy, I think the concept is kind of the same. But yeah, if you can get people to do that, I think that's great. In fact, one of the things we've done in our practice is that we've got, we will hook people up to an IV while they're getting their foot bath. So again, hopefully we'll start mobilizing things out of tissue while they're, detoxing. And that actually seems to work really well for a lot of our patients.
As well, it's stacking at the best, right? You might as well get bang for your buck and time while you're doing something, right? Sit there with your feet in the bath. Do you know what? As a practitioner, from a compliance point of view, the foot bath has been a game changer, because who doesn't want to just come in and put their feet in a bath? Like, it's easy. If you know what I mean, like, it's like, and they're seeing results, they feel better, like clients are on themselves. Like, I think that's what's convinced most of them, even my skeptical clients that are like, this is weird. And I agree, like you, I was so dubious, and I think it's weird. Like, I'll be the first one to say it. But because they experience changes in their symptoms, they're willing to do it, even though it's weird, because it's on their body. It's not me telling them, and like you telling them that their symptoms aren't changing. They're actually feeling it. And there's nothing like feeling your own body change to be like, yeah, that's helping me.
Yeah, and my feeling with any therapy, the proof's in the pudding. So, if the one thing I appreciate about AMD is that they really stand behind their product, and any company that's willing, because they'll let you try it for 2 months, 60 days. And if you don't like it for any reason, you don't even have to call them. You can just mail it back. They give you an immediate refund. And I think 2 months is a fair shake to, determine whether it's actually helping you. So, like, look, if you're really skeptical, look, I get it. I totally understand. It doesn't make a lot of sense to people. Again, I think I've had a deeper understanding the more I've kind of worked with it and talked with the folks at AMD. But if you're open-minded enough to give it a whirl, you can always try it. Try it for 2 months. If you don't like it, send it back. No harm, no foul. I mean, it's not a cheap product. I think the Solo's just under $2,000 and the Premier is about $600 more than that, or $500 more. It's about $2,500. But if it's something that's really helping your health, I see people who spend way more than that on supplements, on other therapies, on IV therapy. There's a lot of things out there that people do to get their health better that are far more expensive. And, once you've got it, really the only maintenance on it is you have to replace the plates. I think it's about every 35 or 40 treatments they recommend to replace the plate. They're not super expensive. So again, I think it's a good investment if you're seeing the clinical benefit. But, to give it a 2-month try and say, hey, look, I don't know if this works or not. And I've had some people, who've used it. It didn't really seem to make a difference. They returned it, they got their money back, and okay. And I know when I talked to Glenn a couple of weeks ago, he was telling me that their return rate is less than 5%. Wow. So that's pretty telling that if 95% of the people who buy it keep it, it says that they're getting some benefit from it. Because if they really weren't, people wouldn't drop that kind of cash and then just keep it because it was too inconvenient to mail it back.
Totally, it's not too inconvenient to mail it back. Hey, Darin, thank you so much for your time. I know that it's almost your dinner time. Well, it's well past your dinner time, probably. You're still in the office for us. Anything else that I haven't asked you that you want to share with us, or we'll let you go so you can get home to dinner?
No, I said, I think if it's something, that you're looking at, that you've been thinking about, if you're interested, in trying to help you, open up your detox pathways, improve your health, give it a try. The fact they'll give you 2 months to try it, with the money back guarantee, I think it's worth it. And again, my experience with it so far has been good, and most of my patients are doing really well with it.
Thank you so much for your time, Darin.
All right. Thanks, Shelley.
Thank you.